Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Shhhcrets. Today, we're diving into one of the most heated races in recent U.S. history, Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump for the White House. Now, if you're anything like me, politics can sometimes feel like a maze. It's easy to get lost, especially when you're not sure what's fact and what's fiction. With the election just around the corner on November 5th, I want to make sure that no matter which party you cast your ballot for, you're fully informed about the key policies shaping this race. Now, this channel isn't about politics, but it is about transparency. I'm all about making sure there are no secrets left untold and that people know the facts before they vote. So, today's video is about exactly that. The 2024 showdown between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. This isn't just a battle of personalities. It's about two very different visions for America's future. On one side, we've got Kamala, who's all about a new way forward, and on the other, Trump doubling down on Make America Great Again. But what do these slogans really mean for everyday Americans? Are we seeing fresh, innovative ideas? Or is it just history repeating itself? Ready to break it all down? Let's get into it. Let's start with the bread and butter of every campaign, the economy. You already know this is a top issue for voters, especially with inflation still hurting everyday Americans. Kamala Harris is leaning heavily into her concept of an opportunity economy. Her vision? Building up the middle class by tackling America's housing crisis head on. That means she's pushing to build 3 million affordable homes and offering first-time buyers up to $25,000 for down payments. That sounds like a win for those struggling to own a home, but here's the thing. Will building that many homes in a short time frame actually solve the problem? Housing shortages and rising costs aren't just about availability, but also about zoning laws, local government hurdles, and labor shortages. It's a massive undertaking, and while Harris's plan is ambitious, is it grounded in reality? She's also promising to boost manufacturing, giving tax credits to companies that create union jobs in steel and iron, and investing in industries like biomanufacturing and aerospace. It's clear she's trying to make America competitive in newer, cutting-edge industries, but I can't help but wonder if this plan has the momentum to really change things in a sluggish economy. And she's got some work ahead to convince voters she can manage this kind of economic transformation. On the flip side, Trump is going back to what he knows, good old-fashioned oil and gas. Drill, baby, drill is back, folks, and he's promising to expand domestic oil production to cut fuel costs and inflation. Now, this sounds familiar, doesn't it? Trump is banking on energy independence as a way to strengthen the economy. But with the world shifting towards green energy and renewables, will this approach hold up in the long run? The fossil fuel industry isn't what it used to be, and focusing solely on oil might not have the same benefits it did a decade ago. Trump also claims he'll pay off the national debt, which now stands at over $35 trillion. But how? His last term saw a major increase in the national debt, so the question is, can he really pull off this feat, or is it just another one of his bold promises with no clear roadmap? Now, let's talk about taxes. Kamala Harris wants to expand the Earned Income Tax Credit for low-income workers, and she's vowing to stick to Joe Biden's promise of not raising taxes on households making less than $400,000 a year. Instead, she's targeting the wealthy, planning to raise corporate tax rates from 21% to 28% and imposing a 28% capital gains tax on those earning over $1 million. That's a lot of new revenue, and it could help fund her programs like child tax credits and affordable housing. But here's the thing, how will these tax hikes on corporations affect job growth? There's always the fear that higher corporate taxes will push companies to cut jobs or move operations overseas, something that could undermine her pro-worker stance. Trump, on the other hand, is all about slashing corporate taxes again, down to 15%, but only for businesses that manufacture in the U.S. This is part of his broader plan to boost domestic production, which he claims will create jobs. However, remember what happened last time? The 2017 tax cuts primarily benefited big corporations and the wealthy. Will this time be different? Trump also wants to keep tariffs in play, particularly against China, which he sees as an economic rival. Tariffs sound good in theory, bringing back manufacturing jobs and protecting American industries, but they often end up raising prices for consumers. So, who's really winning here? Crime. Safety first? Crime is a hot-button issue, and both candidates are addressing it in different ways. Kamala Harris has made it clear that gun control is at the forefront of her policy. She's pushing for a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, along with universal background checks and red flag laws. This sounds great for those concerned about gun violence, but critics argue that stricter gun laws don't necessarily translate into less crime, especially in areas where illegal firearms are the real problem. And while she's mentioned defunding the police in the past, her campaign is now focusing on investing in law enforcement and providing more training. It's a bit of a pivot, and you have to wonder if voters will buy into it. Trump's stance? It's all about law and order. He's promising record funding to hire and retrain officers and is doubling down on being a defender of the Second Amendment. Voters know what they're getting with Trump on crime, a tough stance. And the numbers don't lie. Polls show more Americans trust Trump on this issue. But again, his support for red flag laws in the past is something his base might find hard to reconcile with his Second Amendment rhetoric. Will it hurt him, or is his tough on crime image enough to sway voters? Immigration, a never-ending debate. Immigration is where things get even more heated. Kamala Harris has been labeled a failed border czar by the GOP, but she's pushing back by promising to secure the borders and fix the system. She's planning to increase funding for Border Patrol and bring back a bipartisan security bill that was shot down by Republicans earlier this year. But with record numbers at the southern border, is her plan enough to make a real impact? Trump is, of course, hammering away at the idea of finishing the wall. He's putting mass deportations front and center of his policy, and he's even talking about hiring 10,000 more border agents. He's framing this as a national security issue, which resonates with his base. But with immigration being such a deeply polarizing topic, both candidates are walking a fine line. Abortion, a defining issue. Abortion is one of the key differences between these two. Harris has been vocal about defending reproductive rights, pledging to never allow a national abortion ban if she becomes president. Trump, on the other hand, has been more evasive. He's bragged about appointing the justices who overturned Roe v. Wade, but is distancing himself from the idea of a federal ban, leaving the decision to the states. Voters who are passionate about this issue are looking for more clarity from both candidates, but right now, Harris is the one with a clear stance. Healthcare, tackling costs or playing it safe. When it comes to healthcare, Kamala Harris is making some big promises. She's building on the Biden administration's progress, particularly around lowering prescription drug costs. One of her standout promises is capping insulin at $35 a month, and she's also pushing for a $2,000 annual cap on out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs. These measures are aimed at helping millions of Americans, especially those struggling with high medication costs. Harris has also talked about forgiving medical debt, which is a huge deal for people overwhelmed by healthcare expenses. While she supported Medicare for all in the past, her current campaign is focused more on strengthening the Affordable Care Act and making existing healthcare more affordable. On the other hand, Donald Trump's healthcare strategy is less defined. He's acknowledged that healthcare and prescription drug costs are out of control. And while he promises to fix the system by increasing transparency and promoting competition, the specifics have been lacking. During his first term, he tried to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, but those efforts failed. This time around, voters want to know if he has a clearer plan or if it'll be more of the same. Polls show Harris has the edge on healthcare, with 55% of Americans trusting her to handle the issue well compared to 46% for Trump. With healthcare being such a personal issue for so many voters, it could be a deciding factor in this election. Foreign policy, a showdown on the world stage. Harris is focused on keeping the U.S. competitive globally, especially when it comes to China. She's also continuing support for Ukraine in its conflict with Russia. Trump, meanwhile, is promising to end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours, but with no real plan on how he'll do it. His isolationist stance and desire to pull the U.S. out of unnecessary wars contrast sharply with Harris's commitment to global alliances. This is one area where voters are split. Do they want a president who takes a more active role on the world stage, or one who puts America first and stays out of international conflicts? So, as we head into the home stretch of the 2024 election, the choice between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump couldn't be clearer, or could it? Both candidates are putting forward contrasting visions for America's future, but with accusations of flip-flopping on both sides, the real question is, who do we trust to steer the country for the next 4 years? Will voters choose Kamala's new way forward or stick with Trump's familiar "Make America Great Again"? I'd love to hear what you think. Who's earned your vote and why? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're all about transparency like me, make sure to subscribe if you like my vibe. Until next time, bye.